I am Lucine, and we're going to put together the memory album with the tab spine today. You can find 6 or 7 of these in the Cricut community of different sizes and 2 different spine sizes. I've done a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch. Just depends on if you want lots of pockets and pullouts and different things in your album. Pick the one you want, and you can still make some adjustments on how tall you want the memory album to be. And if you want the pages to be wider, you just cut the pages wider. That's pretty easy. I'll show you how to do that as we go along. So let's go ahead and get started. Here is a few of the 8x8 memory albums that is available there. These are both with the wide, extra wide spine. It's a 1/2 inch. Right there you can see a 1/2 inch gives you tons and tons of room for pop-ups and pockets. This is like inside 2 of the pages. You can see I've got pop-ups on one page, and there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 pockets on the other. And this is what it looks like from the top. You can see there's lots and lots of dimensional work inside that, and that's with the 1/2 inch spine. So if you want to do that, there is an 8x8 with a 1/2 inch spine available. And here is a 5x5 with the 1/4 inch wide spine. And I've actually glued 2 spines together to make an extra wide book, which you can do. So there is also a 5x5 with the narrow spine available if you want to do that. Oh, it's under my name, Lucine Smith. If you can't find it, should be a link at the bottom, in the comments here. This is inside the 5x5. You can see there's not quite as much room for a pocket. There's 1 pocket here and some dimensional work. So you'll be able to get quite a few things in there, just not dozens and dozens of pop-ups. This is an 8.5 by 11, also with a double spine. I've glued 2 together, and I just used full sheets of 8.5 by 11 paper to put that together. This is the 1/4 inch. You can see it's not quite as wide, but there is room for 1 or 2 little pop-ups, 1 or 2 little pockets, a little bit of dimensional work, just not as much. This is a 5 by 7, and it's got the 1/2 inch spine, and there's lots of room for all kinds of stuff in that. I haven't put anything in it yet. Okay, what you want to do now is go into the Cricut community and find the mini album that you want to make. Pick the one that's the closest to the size that you want. You can adjust it slightly, but if you can find one that's exact, that's even better. When you open it, it's going to look something like this. This is the 8x8 with the extra wide tab spine, but yours may look just a little different. It's still going to have all the basically same elements on it. It's going to have the spine, the cover, and the pages. Let's go over one at a time. This is your spine, and it's got the little X's are where you're going to glue the pieces together to make the tabs to put your pages in. The area where the pink is, that is where your front and back cover is going to be. And then the other spaces in between are where your spaces on your spine are going to be. This is the spine cover. Now, you may or may not have the score marks on yours, depending on which project you pick. I have found after making a bunch of these that it's actually easier to score it after you've put the album together. So if you want to remove those completely, you can. Then you can also add a shape on the side. You can do that before the Cricut cuts it, or you can add the shape after you've cut it. I usually die cut it, but you can add the shape before. You can cut it with scissors. You can do anything you want with the spine cover as long as you just do it to the edges. In fact, you can just leave it straight if you want to. I do that quite often. These are the pages. You're going to need 12 for a normal sized book. You can resize these if you want them a slightly different size. Make sure the spine and the book page length match. So if you're going to change one, you need to make sure you change the other. Make sure you unlock it to change it. Don't just change it. Some of the projects only have 2 of these shown, but you're still going to need 12. This is the front and back cover that goes on top of the actual cover. So if you want to put these in some pretty paper and add those before you put on the spine cover, you can. It's totally optional. You can just leave it plain with whatever you start off with. Okay, this is changing the height of your album. If you can see down here in the left corner, it says it's 6 inches high. I'm going to unlock that, change it to 7, and that's going to make my spine immediately 7 inches tall. You also need to go over and change your pages to 7 inches tall. So unlock those and change it to whatever you want it to be. Now I'm going to change that back to 6 so it's ready, but you can see how they've got to be the same height. You can change the width of your pages to anything. It's not going to matter at all. This is also an example of a spine cover that has had the edges rounded before I let the Cricut cut it. So you can do that if you want to. Okay, so let's get these out of the way and let's get started. You've cut all your pages out and you've got a spine to start with. Now the spine has little X's on it. There should be 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of X's. Those are where your page spine little tabs are going to be. Just to make sure that you know where those X's are, go ahead and put a mark on each one, because if you're going to make a mistake, that is the most common one, is gluing the wrong two pieces together or gluing them in the wrong direction, because the X's do slightly show through on the back and it's easy to get confused. And the marks aren't going to show. Okay, what else you're going to need? You're going to need a bone folder. You're going to need all your cut pages, which you should have already. You're going to need some thicker red liner tape. Now, if you don't have red liner tape, you can get away with using just the glue. You can use wet glue or you can use paper glue. This is Art Glitter brand glue. I absolutely love this glue. And either one is fine. I'm going to go ahead and use both because the red liner tape is major strong. The first thing you want to do is fold all your pages, fold all your folds. And you know, it really doesn't matter at this point which direction you fold them in. I usually fold mine in both directions anyway. It gives you a little more flexibility. And I am not going to sit here and have you watch me fold these, so I'm going to fold them real quick. All right, so while I fold these in double time, take note that this is not a fan fold. You do not want to fold these as a fan fold because your X's are going to be face to face, and a fan fold is just going to give you extra work that you're not going to need to do. I just fold all of mine in the same directions. It's very easy to get them where you want them later. And the reason I say it's not a fan fold is because your two X's are all going to be face to face. So after you fold everything, go ahead and find your two X's and fold and score, fold and burnish those X lines together face to face. And since I folded all those pages that same direction anyway, those are already folded face to face. All right, pick your first one. Put your red liner tape. I'm going to put it pretty close to the top. Make sure it doesn't go over. Trim it. Burnish it down. And then lift it up. Now I'm going to add a little bit of glue inside. You can see the tape isn't quite a half an inch. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that edge and a little bit of glue right there. And then I'm going to fold those two face to face. And I am going to burnish that down. And then I'm going to open it immediately. And that is actually the back side of your spine. This is where you're going to be putting your pages. But we're going to do the same exact thing, face to face where the X's are. And this is why it's so easy to get confused, because you think, oh, well, this is where I need it. That's where I should be putting it together, and that is just not right. All right, so I'm going to do one more of these, and then the others I will not subject you to more work. Burnish that down. Red liner tape really needs to be burnished. Otherwise, when you try to take the backing off, you're just going to pull the cardstock up with it. All right, take something sharp, get a hold of that red liner tape. Pull it off. I'm going to add a little glue. To my edge and my inside there. And I'm going to put those X's face to face. Burnish that down. Fold that back. And you now have a nice flat outside of the spine, and you have 2 more pages. And you can see how there's a 1/2 inch in between them to do that. Flip it back over and do your last 2 pages exactly the same as you just did those. If you want a thicker album like this one here, you can see there's actually 2 sets of spines on this one. It's pretty easy to do. All you need to do is more pages, 6, 8, 12 pages more. Just make an extra one. Cut this down to a 1/2 inch and glue another one right on top of it. So you've got a 1/2 inch in between that. Easy as pie. All right, now this is your cover section here. That's going to be where your cover pages are going to go on, and your back cover pages are going to go on. And that again is your outside spine. All right, let's get our pages on. All right, I will again do 2, and then you can just follow along and do your own. Now you've got the spine piece, which we already talked about, or maybe not. I've got my front and back piece that's going to go on top of my cover, and I've got my 12 pages, because you'll need 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. All right, to start with, I'm going to glue either the front or the back cover. They're pretty much the same at this point on. And I'm going to use wet glue for this, simply because it takes a little bit longer to dry, so you have some wiggle room. If you are very confident and you've done a few, you can use the dry glue like the art glitter blue, but I'm not going to. It doesn't take much. Wet glue really gets all over the place. All right. Now, what you want to do is you want to make sure it covers the entire, right up against the fold, but not over the fold. And you want the sides to line up exactly. And that is the benefit of cutting it on the Cricut, because it is going to be a perfect 8 inches. So your big part is getting that square. And flat. So down like so, and down like so. Like I said, you got a little room for wiggle time, and it should be perfect. All right, now you're going to take some more glue, and you're going to put it right back on. You're going to put it in that area again, and this time you're going to go right along the outside edge, get within about 1/4 of an inch. It's going to spurt out. You don't want that to happen, so don't go too much over the edge. Get your blank page. If you want to spread it out a little bit, you can. And then you want to get this right smack up against that edge. But what's really important is that you get the front and the sides exactly even and straight. So you want this to be perfectly straight and even. You want your sides to be exactly straight and even. Okay. So that's going to take, this is why wet glue might not be a bad idea for everyone, because it does take a little bit of playing to get that perfectly straight and even, and be aware that you very well might have some bleed. But I cover all my pages anyway. If you're not going to, then you might want to be a little bit more careful about that bleed. Although for the most part, wet glue will rub right off if you don't wait too long. All right, and there is an absolute perfect front cover if you don't count the fact that there's glue on there. But like I said, I'm going to cover that anyway, so I don't really care, but you can always just rub it off. All right, you do the next page in exactly the same. You don't have quite as much room to work with, but you don't actually need it. All right, fold that down. I'm going to a little wet glue, and you don't want it all over the place, just on the tab. Okay, put this right up against the edge. Make sure it's even with your cover. Push it up against the edge, and then push that down on it. And rub it till it's dry. You want it to be exactly even top and bottom with your cover. And you want it all the way up inside. But you don't want it to stop the page from folding. All right, and then you do the other exactly the same. Put some glue on there. I put a line right here where the fold is, around the edges, and a little bit in the middle. This actually is very, very good to strengthen your page as well. Now, this side is going to be taken care of when you have your pieces exactly even at the top and the bottom, and that is the most important. So get your pieces even top and bottom. Check it on all your sides. Lay it flat. Straighten it out and glue it down. If for some reason your top is even and your bottom's not right up against the edge, don't worry about it. It's the most important that it's even on the top and the sides. Burnish it down. A little rubbing helps dry it. It also helps spread the glue around, which is going to make your page really, 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 really nice and strong. Now, just in case you didn't catch it last time, my pages are Michael's Recollection 110, which is actually probably a little closer to 140. It's the heaviest 110 cardstock I've ever done. And the spine is Office Card 110. And actually 80, 85 works just as well for the spine. You don't want it to be the really, really hard Michael's 110 because that's not going to give you enough flexibility. You don't want it to be as tough as your pages. All right, and continue on, and finish your album. If you want to switch over to the front and then do your inside pages last, that's fine. If you want to just continue on straight across, that's fine too. So finish your pages and get them all done. Okay, so all my pages are together. Now, if you're doing a 1/2 inch spine, you can see your spine's going to be a little floppy. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a minute. If you're doing a 1/4 inch spine, even if you've doubled up on it, your edges are not going to be quite as floppy, and you don't need to do anything extra except just add the spine cover. So if you're doing a 1/2 inch, what I'm going to do is get some duct tape. Don't use like packing tape or anything. It needs to be duct tape because duct tape is very flexible. So I'm going to take some duct tape and I'm going to tape all the way up and down the spine with about 1 inch overlap. And that's going to give me the strength to keep the spine from collapsing, I guess you could say. So I'm going to cut a piece of duct tape. And this doesn't have to be exact because I'm going to put a cover over the whole thing anyway, so it's not going to show. So just put the duct tape on the spine, and I apologize that it's not showing. There we go. Okay, so put the duct tape on the spine. Make sure the spine is completely flat and all the pieces are right snugged up against the duct tape. I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to burnish inside all the pages to make sure the duct tape is adhered to all of those little pages, all those little pieces there, because it's not going to do you a bit of good if you don't have it in the right place. So I'm burnishing down the duct tape. I'm going to put it up on the sides. So not too much overlap, just 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And you can see that that's actually closer to 2 inches, but you don't need that much. All right, no, it's just 1 inch. And then do that all the way down the side, just for that little extra strength. And I guess really you don't have to do this, but it's going to be a little bit floppy if you don't. So just cut the tape, put it on. And again, if it overlaps a little, it doesn't matter, but I try not to overlap it too much. And then burnish it down onto each little 1/2 inch space in there. You want it to be nice and tight and flat. So do that all the way down, and you'll be set to go to the next step. But all the tape is done, and what I'm going to do now is add 2 cover sheets to the front and the back. And if you are doing a smaller album, you don't really need to do this. If you are doing a 1/4-inch tab and you haven't added tape to it, if you want to use just the plain cover that you've already done, you can do that. You still need a spine cover, but you don't have to put extra paper on the front and back if you don't want to. I almost always do, not always, but mostly. Anyway, I've cut 2 pieces of cover sheet, and I'm going to glue those on. So it's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to deciding what I want the front of the back. And at this point it doesn't matter, but once you put your covers on, and you need to kind of decide which is your front and which is your back. And I've got a couple pieces of tape here that I need to trim off. So let me get that. Okay. I don't want to tuck it under because it will show from the other side, because I do usually leave maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch bare on my inside pages, or I add pockets and stuff. I don't cover the sheet before I add the pockets. Okay, so now I'm going to glue on the cover. And I'm going to have it go this direction. I think I like that for the front because it's got a little bit more design on it. And I'm going to use dry glue for this. This is Art Glitter brand glue, and my bottle's almost empty, so bear with me. And I'm going to go right up against the edges on this because it doesn't spread out like your wet glue does. And it dries really, really, really quick. So you need to move fast. I'm going to put it all the way around the outside, a little bit in the middle. And this still will add strength to your book. So it's always nice to add extra pages and extra sheets in there. The more you do that, the stronger your book will be. Okay, so I'm going to put that cover, and you want to get your edges, just like you're putting your pages together, make sure your edges are even. And I'm going to make sure that's centered before I push it down, because once you push down Art Glitter brand glue, it is there forever. And good. Now we're going to press that down. Perfect. And then I'm going to do the back exactly the same way. You can see why I'm opening this to do this is so that the pages in the middle aren't tricking you by making you think that they're part of the cover, and that is really easy to do. So make sure you open the book all the way when you're doing individual pages so you don't see the page underneath it, because it's very, very easy to get confused and glue it in the wrong place. So open it up and glue it. My dry glue. There's a couple of different brands of dry glue you can find too. Barely Art glue is pretty good. I just like Art Glitter brand glue better. I buy it by the pint. Fill up my little bottles. I got my edges even. And then I'm going to lay it down and varnish it. You know, at any time, if you get bored with what I'm doing and you understand where I'm going with it, just fast forward. I mean, I'm never going to know, so you're certainly not hurting my feelings. Okay, after you do this, what you want to do now is your spine cover. You know what? I forgot to ink my edges, so I'm going to go ahead and do that next. And I would have normally do this on a glass mat rather than this plastic mat, but since I'm using the plastic mat here, the white mat, is actually so I know where the video is, and that way I don't wander off the page. My glass mat is so big that if I use that as a marker, I would never know where I was. So I'm inking up the edges. It just gives you a little bit more dimension, and I would have recommended that you do this before you glue it on, but it really doesn't matter. But if I was using a glass mat, then I could use all that ink that's on the side there. I could just slide it right on top, and I wouldn't be using quite so much ink. It's a little harder to do with a plastic mat. So I'm going to ink the edges. And it doesn't matter that I can't get to the inside edge, because that's going to be covered by the spine anyway. I missed a corner. Hold on. I've got to fill that bottle up. Good. Okay, that's better. And now I'm going to ink this edge. I have no idea where I got this paper, but I absolutely love it. It's actually a 65 weight cardstock. But that's all I know, because I don't know where it came from. Chances are I got it from Michael's too, but I also go to a lot of little independent scrapbook stores if I'm traveling, so I could have picked it up anywhere. Wish I had a whole book of it. Okay, and put my ink away and get this cleaned up. Just a little spritz of water, because that's water-based ink. It'll come right up. Okay, this is the spine. Now this is one of the spines that I had the score marks already on it, and I believe that at the time it was about 1/8 of an inch off. I have since fixed that, but if you want to remove the spine registration marks when you're cutting it out on the Cricut, go ahead and do that. Or when you're putting it together, just rescore it. It's not going to matter. But these are just a little off, but I'm going to make it work. So take your spine cover, sorry. I'm going to go back with the wet glue because I want a little bit of wiggle room. And this is actually very strengthening. So I'm going to do that, make sure I get it inside. Make sure you don't get it on the edges, because you don't want to squirt out where it is going to show now. Let me trim that. Okay. This actually is pretty thick. And I'm going to take my dry glue and I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit around the edges too, just in case. And I know my dry glue isn't going to squirt out, so going around the edges on that isn't going to make a mess. I guess you could actually use red liner tape on this too if you felt very sure of yourself. Remember, red liner tape has absolutely zero wiggle room. Once you press something down on red liner tape, it is there forever. Alright, I'm going to put my spine on there. And I'm going to put the corners where they belong. And you can see right there where my 1/8 of an inch, where it's off that 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to fold it around anyway. And rescore it as I go. Make sure your top and your bottom is where it needs to match. Your top and your bottom. Very, very important. And then burnish that down. And get it on there nice and straight, nice and even. Now you can see I left the edges of this straight. Unlike most of the samples that I showed you earlier where the edges were die cut. I could have easily just die cut those, but I actually like the gold, so I thought a nice big thick gold. See, this one was die cut, but either one is good. It just depends on what look you're going for. I think I will probably foil some gold on my cover where the little circles are to make it a little bit prettier. So just burnish all that down and make sure your spine cover is nice and tight, and it should be ready to go. Now all you need to do is add your photos and your decorations, and you'll have a beautiful album. I will have pockets and pop-ups and things available in the Cricut community pretty soon. In the meantime, if you want to make your spine from scratch, here is a couple of pictures of what that's going to look like, but I will have better template photos on my website. Everybody, have a great day. Bye.